Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Mehrob Fatemi. We got a packed slate for you guys today. Another unbelievable slate of games last night, starting, of course, with the Warriors and Houston Rockets late at night, the last game to be played for the night. We're going to start off there, recapping what happened there. Jalen Green he heard the critics. Everybody on the Houston offense heard the critics after game one that they can't match up with the Golden State Warriors. They can't stop them. Their defense is not enough to stop this Golden State offense. That is everything that we heard, and we also heard Jalen Green needing to step up. He did exactly that, dropping 38 points in this game too, and showing up and showing out in that game too last night. We're going to recap everything about that game to start off the show. From there, we're going to take a look at the Boston Celtics knocking off the Orlando Magic in their game too, without Jason Tatum, just pretty much flat out hustling them. We're gonna just recap that game overall because there was a lot to talk about in that game. It wasn't the most eye-opening game, but it was still a good game between a couple of squads between a tough Orlando Magic squad and a Boston Celtics team that is without their best player, and just showing off why they won the NBA championship this last year and why they are still favorites to win it this season. From there, we're going to take a look at the Knicks and Pistons. We're going to preview that game 3 happening later tonight. Overall, there's nothing that much else that needs to be said there. 1-1 series going back to Detroit. Detroit having their first playoff series in years, winning their first playoff game since 2008. Having an incredible bounce back season, an incredibly young team. And then a New York Knicks team that's kind of struggling a little bit on the offensive end, really just looking really discombobulated. That's the word that comes to mind when I personally think of the New York Knicks. And yeah, overall, we're going to take a look at that series. And then to finish the show, we're going to take a look at DeMar DeRozan and some news that came out about him recently and what to expect from him in his future, whether he stays with the Kings, and we'll get into what his future might entail later on in the show. But before I go any further, I'd like to remind you guys to please like and follow the show for more GSMC Sports Network content. Also, we get a number of questions from viewers that come in during the show. So to ensure that your question gets read on air, I ask that you use the tips and donations link at gsmcpodcast.net. This puts your question at the top of the list so I see it, and it also really helps out the show. Again, the link is gsmcpodcast.net for all your questions and comments. But getting right back into it here for the good stuff. We had Warriors and Rockets square off last night in what was honestly easily the best game of the night. It wasn't close. Two teams that have a storied past. Ime Udoka, well, we all remember back in the day in the Western Conference Finals when these two teams used to square off in the James Harden days. Steph Curry obviously still there. Draymond Green still there. Steve Kerr still there. We still have Ime Udoka, who vividly remembers that 2022 finals when the Warriors took out his Boston Celtics when he was the head coach of the Boston Celtics back then. Yeah, and this new Rockets team is still a great team, a very young, revamped team built around a core group of guys on the defensive end of the ball, and overall really figuring out their offensive identity as this season has gone on. Very similar to the Detroit Pistons in the Eastern Conference, with a very young defensive core group of guys, with Cade Cunningham emerging as the offensive threat. For the Houston Rockets, it was Jalen Green. It has been Jalen Green all season long. He's been averaging about 26 points a game, about 5 rebounds, 6 assists a game, playing unbelievable basketball overall. And yeah, I mentioned it at the top of the show, he heard all the critics in game 1. As a fan, as a person watching the game, I thought that the Houston Rockets in game 1 looked like their offense was going to be their Achilles heel. It looked like that offense was going to be the reason why the Golden State Warriors won most of their games. I really thought so. I thought both the play of Steph Curry in game one, dancing all over Amen Thompson, shooting crazy threes, making crazy threes, stopping Houston Rockets' momentum swings by himself, making shots, being an offensive spark. Just the power that Steph Curry has from the 3-point line was going to be too much for this Houston Rockets team to overcome as a team, especially with a young offensive core group that was shooting so bad. I believe Jalen Green only had less than 15 points in game one. Fred VanVleet shot 2 of 14 from 3-point range. Just overall, just a very bad performance. Outside of Alperen Sengun, who had his way in the interior, having 28 points, I believe, in game one, the rest of the team was just abysmal. So, yeah, just overall, I thought that Achilles heel from an offensive standpoint was going to be too much for the Houston Rockets to overcome. And then there was game two. Last night, Jalen Green hurt. I say it, this is the third time I've said it. He hurt. He heard all of the critics last night, scoring 38 points in game two, flat out showing out. The Houston Rockets took this game to the Golden State Warriors last night. They did not let Golden State have any breathing room, have any room to go on runs, go on their little have Steph Curry go on runs, have Steph Curry spark this offense. They took control of this game early on. They took the momentum and never looked back. They won basically every quarter outside of the fourth quarter when the Warriors won by 1 point. And yeah, that's really all that needs to be said. The Warriors had their hands full in this game, and the Rockets defense held strong, but their offense was the key to this game. This Houston Rockets offense was lights out in this one. I mentioned Jalen Green having 38 points, shooting 13 of 25, 8 of 18 from 3-point range. Just overall, the team shooting about 37% from 3-point range. Overall, it was just a great performance. And major props to Amen Thompson for his defensive assignment on Steph Curry. Finishing with, he didn't have any steals or blocks, but he still finished with 11 points. Still a great game from him. Steph Curry having one of his more calmer shooting nights, 6 of 15, only about 20 points. He was the leading scorer for the Golden State Warriors. Just overall, this was the Houston Rockets show last night. This was the Houston Rockets game. And honestly, they needed this one. If we're being 100% transparent, this Houston Rockets team was in the same position that the Los Angeles Lakers were in last night against the Minnesota Timberwolves. The problem is a lot of people aren't going to call it that because the Los Angeles Lakers were favorites to beat the Timberwolves versus the Rockets. A lot of people picking the Warriors over the Rockets. Even though we're all expecting it to be a 7-game series, myself included. But this has more to do with the Houston Rockets than it has to do with the Golden State Warriors. Flat out, period, as nothing else. There's not much else needs to be said about that. There is one other thing that needs to be said that we do need to talk about here. That I wish I had an injury update on him, but I don't think the news has come out yet, unfortunately. Jimmy Butler, a player that he's named playoff Jimmy Butler for a reason. We've known him for years. We've known him from his days in Miami when he took 2 Miami teams that really we didn't expect much out of. We didn't expect him to make the NBA Finals, especially that 8-seeded Miami Heat team. That same Jimmy Butler being taken out of this game. Best way to call it is he went up for a layup. Amen Thompson pretty much undercut him. I'm not sure if they called that flagrant foul on Amen Thompson on that play, but basically undercut him as Jimmy Butler went up, and Jimmy Butler just falling pretty much on his lower back, on his buttocks, and in immediate pain. If you remember back in the day when Steph Curry landed in that position and was out, he was out for about I believe he was out for 3 to 4 weeks with a lower back injury. I believe like he fractured or chipped or cracked something in his back. Overall, it was just a tough scene to see. And we wish Jimmy Butler nothing but the best. Hopefully he'll be back quick, fast, and in a hurry, because the Warriors need him. I will not lie. This Warriors team it's offensively lenient on two guys, in Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler. We love Brandon Podziemski. We love the addition of Brandon Post, of Draymond Green continuing to play well off facilitating the ball. We loved Buddy Hield. There's a lot of role players on this Golden State Warriors team, and Brandon Podziemski is possibly growing to be a number 3 option for this Warriors team. He is, and he's growing into that role, but he's not there yet. He's not reliable yet. He is not there yet. You cannot give him that expectation, because he is nowhere near. If we're gonna compare him to a number 3 option, compare him to an Austin Reeves, compare him to a Chet Holmgren or a Jalen Williams on the Oklahoma City Thunder. Compare him to a Mike Conley. You can't compare him. You can't compare him to any of these guys that I just mentioned, because he's not at that level yet. He's a baby. He's still, I think this is his 3rd year in the NBA. He's still a baby in the NBA. He's still growing up. He still needs time to grow up in the playoffs, to grow into his role, to just get more games under his belt. Just overall, just mature into an NBA player. So he needs more time. But yeah, this Warriors team needs Jimmy Butler to be healthy. Jimmy Butler, obviously, we know him to be a warrior. We beyond the acronym of just beyond the title of being a part of the Golden State Warriors. He embodies that name. Especially, we know him as playoff Jimmy Butler. We've seen him go down with injuries. We've seen him come back into games, in games that we don't expect him to come back in. I'm trying to think. I believe, didn't he have a knee injury back in the day in 2023? In that Game 6 when he dropped 45 points against Boston. I just know this off the top of my head, because I'm 85% sure that is a thing that happened. But Jimmy Butler is a warrior. Is a guy that comes out in games and does not shy away from the big moments, does not shy away from injuries. Injuries do not deter him. He's a guy that comes out on the court, gives his best effort, plays from the first tip to the final to the final buzzer, and that's that. He shows up, he plays, and he leaves everything out on the court. Plain and simple. There's nothing else to really say. But yeah, overall, the Warriors need Jimmy Butler to be back in this series if they want a chance to beat this Rockets team. That is just how good the Houston Rockets are this year. That is at the level I'd put them at, because the Rockets are a great team. You cannot underrate the Rockets at all. You cannot underrate them from a defensive standpoint. Without Jimmy Butler on the floor, Steph Curry is absolutely just left wide open to be double teamed. You leave him out for the double team, and that is it. If you leave him out to dry right like that, he's going to be, especially against a stellar defensive player like Amen Thompson. We remember at the end of April when Amen Thompson had the defensive assignment on Steph Curry, a major reason why a lot of people are picking the Houston Rockets to win this series. Steph Curry shot 1 for 10 from three-point range, only had 3 points in a game that the Warriors lost in a similar fashion to this one. Not as much of an offensive performance from the Rockets in that game, but the defense was no joke in that game. Was nothing to sneeze at, was nothing to underrate. So, Jimmy Butler needs to come back in this series flat out, and that's all that really needs to be said in that discussion. We'll have more of an update for him in the upcoming playoff series. Anthony, I do see your comment, but I do need to hit a quick short break. When we come back, we're going to take a look at the Celtics Magic series, and I will respond to your comment, Anthony, when I come back from break. We're going to we're going to recap that Celtics Magic game 2. Be right back, guys.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit, I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant, I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, I'm losing shit. A stupid myth, you choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Mehrob Fatemi. Getting right back into it here, we're going to talk a little bit about the Boston Celtics Orlando Magic series. Their game 2 squaring off last night. The Celtics taking this one 109-100. Honestly, a game that was just basically about grit and hustle. Whoever won this game, it was going to come down to those two factors. And it was the Boston Celtics shining in this one. The Orlando Magic still playing a stellar game, bringing this lead down to 2 points at one point late in the third quarter, early in the fourth quarter as well. Just hanging around, sticking with them, but the Celtics just being too much, especially in the rebounding category. We're going to talk a little bit about that in this segment, and overall the play of Derek White and everything considered, both Magic standpoint, Celtic standpoint, and preview a little bit of what to expect in Game 3. Give a little bit of an update on Jason Tatum as well. But before I move any further, I'd like to remind you guys to please like and follow the show for more GSMC Sports Network content. Also, we get a number of questions that come in during the show. So to ensure that your question gets read on air, I ask that you use the tips and donations link at gsmcpodcast.net. This puts your question at the top of the list so that I see it, and it also really helps out the show. Again, the link is gsmcpodcast.net for all your questions and comments. But getting right back into it here. Anthony, I'm sorry for putting you on hold late in that first segment. I just really needed to go into break and of course just do the intro for this segment. Do you think a player like Jimmy Butler, being that he is more of a defensive first player, he could score, but he relies more on his defense? Do you think that's going to fall, pretty much is what you're saying? Fall off a cliff more than do you think his defensive side will fall off than his scoring side? Coming off of injury, or which he relies on more? I think he definitely relies on his scoring more. He's a very underrated defensive player, I'd say. He's incredibly underrated as a two-way player. But offensively, we know him as playoff Jimmy Butler. We remember him from his days in Miami, scoring 40 points a game in those series against Milwaukee. Iconically against Milwaukee in 2023. Iconically multiple times against Boston. Just overall, Jimmy Butler is not a player to sneeze at. He's one of the best players in the NBA. One of the best players in the NBA. Probably top 10 player you want on your team in the NBA playoffs, I'd say. So, yeah, from a defensive standpoint, I think he's incredibly underrated. Offensively, he plays at his own pace, and he's very similar to like Luka Doncic, like controlling the pace, I'd say. I give credit to Orlando for even holding this game as close as they did with the amount of young players they have on their roster. Yeah, I agree. Honestly, I think the Orlando's, from a defensive standpoint, can go up against anybody, I'd say. Anybody in the Eastern Conference. Maybe in the West, they'll have a little bit more trouble with the Denver Nuggets of the world. Any team that has a big man, insane center, like, say the Mavericks would have given them trouble. The Nuggets, even the Clippers with Ivica Zubac could give them trouble, I could see. Overall, but Orlando from a wing defender standpoint, with Paolo Banchero, with Cole Anthony Black, Bitadze, even though we saw him elbow Porzingis in the forehead. We'll talk a little bit about that when I start the segment. I probably should start it pretty soon. But, yeah, give a lot of credit to Orlando. And no, what I'm asking is, being that Jimmy is a defensive first player, do you think he falls off a cliff faster compared to a guy who's purely a score first player like Kevin Durant or Devin Booker? Um, well, I guess I didn't think of it that way. I think I think Jimmy's defense definitely keeps him hanging around in the top 10 playoff performer category, but Jimmy Butler offensively is a big reason why he's remembered the way he is. I think I remember him more as an offensive first guy, but at the same time, well, no, I remember him as a two-way player because he's not offensive heavy like a Kevin Durant or a Devin Booker. He can't shoot the three like that. But for some reason in the playoffs, he just plays like I'm gonna go back to my comparison with Luka Doncic. He just plays very similar to Luka Doncic does in the similar pace, just pacing the game. But he plays like LeBron at the same time, getting into the lane. Like, he's an incredibly physical player, but in terms of facilitating and dictating the offense, he just moves at an incredibly slow pace, taking his time up the court, setting up plays very well. He just takes his time. He does not rush anything. I don't think he's gonna fall. No, I don't think he falls off a cliff faster, if that's the question you're asking. Compared to Kevin Durant or Devin Booker, I think his defense. I think from a defensive standpoint, he'll hang around for a while. I think, and he's getting older at the same time. So how many years do you expect of him? We probably have 4 years, 5 years max of Jimmy Butler left in the league. And knowing Jimmy Butler, he's probably going to retire in 3 years because he's one of those guys that, like, I don't know. You saw it in Houston, in Miami, late in his tenure with Miami. I don't enjoy playing basketball as much. I want to enjoy basketball again. I'm gonna leave it off on that note for now. Just talking about that. I appreciate those questions on it, Anthony. Just mixing it up, just keeping me off the. Well, doesn't matter. Going back to the Orlando Magic Celtics series. Celtics going up 2-0 last night after winning this game 109-100. I mentioned it at the top of the segment. Just overall, Magic just stuck with the Celtics. Even in game one, we saw them go into halftime with a 1-point lead. This Orlando Magic team is heavily underrated. Heavily underrated. I think if they went up against the Cleveland Cavaliers, it would have been a more entertaining series. It would have gone possibly 7 games. I just think the Celtics just pose a matchup problem. We saw Porzingis cause Wendell Carter Jr. so many issues in the post last night. Jaylen Brown, Derek White, the players that have just played stellar all season long. Jaylen Brown leading the way for the Celtics team with 36 points and 10 rebounds. It was a Jaylen Brown show. We kind of knew this. We knew Jaylen Brown needed to step up to the plate without Jason Tatum in the lineup. If he hadn't, especially with the way the Celtics are looked at right now, with the I don't even want to call it heavily expected. I just want to, just crazy expectations, really, with how Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are so heatedly compared to one another. Who's better player? Who's the better fit for this team? Who's the better leader for this team? We knew Jaylen Brown needed to step up to the plate, or else Jaylen Brown would have just heard the noise that, oh, Jason Tatum's better than you, or you didn't step up. The Celtics team is not as good as you expected it to be. I don't know. We knew we would have heard it from everyone across the league. But Jaylen Brown stepping up, Porzingis with 20 points and 10 rebounds. That is exactly where I wanted to go with this topic as well. 3 players for the Boston Celtics getting into double figures in the rebounding category with Jaylen Brown, Al Horford, and Porzingis. Derek White's also having 6 rebounds in this game. I just think the rebounding disparity, I've said it before, rebounding in the playoffs is key if you're going to win playoff series, especially for a team that likes to shoot the 3 like the Boston Celtics. If you are able to give them more opportunities to shoot that 3 and they shoot it efficiently, they might miss for a little while, but they're not going to miss forever. That's the biggest key factor with the Celtics team, and you see it time and time again. This time it was Derek White. I remember Derek White shot a three in the corner. Horford with the rebound, kick it right back out to White in the corner once again in the same exact spot, and he just knocks it down. That is just one example that comes to mind in that game. But overall, yeah, this series is just coming down to talent versus grit with Jason Tatum in the lineup, of course. Even without Jason Tatum in the lineup, we know the Celtics are more talented, but Orlando is just such a gritty team. They remind me a lot of the New York Knicks in 2022, 2023, in a way, with how they were built on defense, built on grit with Julius Randle. That was before Jalen Brunson was on the team. I'm talking about the New York Knicks team that beat the Cavs in 5 games. I believe that might have been 2023. I'm trying to think back. I think that was 2023, actually. Just overall, this Celtics team is just built on talent, but they're not really built on grit. That was the biggest thing that we've kind of lamented, that we've questioned about this Celtics team down the stretch. Their ability to handle adversity, because we've seen it from years past. I know it from a Celtics fan. I'm trying to keep it out of this, but we've seen them collapse in games time and time again. They're known for blowing leads. They're known for not showing up in big moments in fourth quarters. But they're kind of turning around that narrative. That's the biggest factor that we saw. And last night was another example, another opportunity for them to shut down that notion. And they did very well at that. The Magic did cut this lead to 2 points. And then every time they did cut it to between 2 and 5 points, the Celtics just bloomed the lead back up to 10. That's just the name of the game for the Celtics. Sorry, Anthony, you're going crazy in these comments. Let me answer these comments quickly before I go on. I'll answer these comments, and then I'll probably go on to the next segment here. I hope I'm not on a limb here, but I can see Orlando pushing Boston to 7 games, even though they're down 2-0, because they did it last play-in to the number 2 seed. Yeah, you're talking about the series against the Cleveland Cavaliers. That's a big reason why I said the Cleveland Cavaliers would have been a better matchup for this Magic team. I thought the Magic kind of figured out the Cleveland Cavaliers down the stretch last year. And even though they got blown out in that Game 7, that was like the experience of a Donovan Mitchell. That is what happens in Game 7s. It's you either shoot the ball incredibly, you don't shoot the ball very well, or the star players. It comes down to the star players in Game 7. It comes out to the superstar names, and that was Donovan Mitchell in that one. That was Darius Garland, Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, versus really just a Paulo Banchero and a Franz Wagner. Franz Wagner that has not played as well as we remember him last year. Franz Wagner that's kind of taken a little bit of a step back. That'll be an interesting conversation for another day, just because I think there's a lot to talk about there, and he's a player that's growing, and we'll hope that he can kind of grow into a better player next year. It could be that a lot of the pressure is kind of getting to him now. Maybe another player in Orlando, another star player to pair with those two, trio with those two guys could be really good for this Magic team. Could be very well for Franz Wagner's confidence overall. But that's just the state of the Orlando Magic right now. Yeah, there are definitely people underestimating the Orlando Magic overall, but I just think we saw it with people betting on the Orlando Magic. I believe like there were a lot there. The Magic weren't favored obviously against the Celtics, but there were a lot of people coming out and saying, overall we need Orlando to come out. Or Boston has the talent, but we know Orlando can make games scrappy, can muddy up the waters, can make games, can just deter you from what you want to do and make you just beat them in other ways. That's pretty much the Orlando Magic are just a very good team. They're just missing a couple players. They're missing a key player. They remind you of the Heat with D Wade. That's a great way to honestly describe it. I don't know if I'll compare Paolo to D Wade back in the day from D Wade's prime, but I think he can grow into that. I think Paolo is a great player, a great young player on both sides of the ball. He reminds me of a young Jimmy Butler, honestly, from an offensive and a defensive standpoint. A younger Jimmy Butler. I don't mean current Jimmy Butler. It's different animal in the playoffs. But Orlando, they're just missing. They're one key player away from being a very good contending team in the Eastern Conference. I think and especially with Jalen Suggs missing a lot of time this year. If Jalen Suggs was playing in this series, I think the series could easily go 7 games. I picked Boston to win in 6 games, but a lot of people are picking Boston in 4, picking Boston in 5. I still think Orlando still has a chance in Game 3. We'll see how Game 4 goes. I think that's another thing I wanted to get to in this segment. I think Jason Tatum will be back by Game 4. I think he's probably going to miss Game 2, Game 3, and then be back for most likely Game 4, unless it's a 3-0 series lead for Boston. Then it's pretty much a foregone conclusion in that one. But I'm going to take another short break. When we come back, we're going to take a look at preview the Game 3 in Detroit later on tonight. That is a massive game coming up because obviously Pistons haven't seen a playoff series, haven't won a playoff series game, haven't won a playoff game since 2008 until last night. Haven't really been overall just relevant in the playoffs since they won the NBA championship in 2004, outside of the Andre Drummond years in 2012, if you want to call him. But overall, we're just going to preview that game and that series in the next segment. I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode. Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Mehrob Fatemi. I apologize for that intro. I don't know why I said it like that. But getting right back into the action here, we're going to take a look at the series between the Detroit Pistons and the Boston Celtics. A series that's really been Detroit Pistons and the New York Knicks, not Boston. Not Boston. Definitely not Boston. The Detroit Pistons, this series obviously tied at 1 game apiece. Detroit winning Game 2. Honestly, Detroit dominating Game 2 overall. It was just the New York Knicks did not... The word that comes to mind for the New York Knicks in this series offensively so far is discombobulated. A series that you expect more from them overall, and honestly, that's really the only thing that you can call it here. The play of Cade Cunningham down the stretch in Game 2 was massive, finishing with 33 points, 13 rebounds. I want to say that's about what you expect from a Cade Cunningham, but a player that's really shown up and shown out here late in the regular season, throughout the regular season overall, and a player that I personally think is going to continue to perform at a high level as these playoffs move forward. But I think this game is going to mean a lot more. I think the Pistons are going to win this one decisively. Before we even get started into the series, I just want to set the stage really quick. The Detroit Pistons have not won a playoff game since 2008. Had not won a playoff game until 2 nights ago since 2008. They're one of the most, I don't even want to call them underrated because, well, they're one of the most underrated teams in these playoffs. But the Detroit Pistons have not had success in a long time. That Detroit fan base has been salivating for another opportunity in the playoffs, for another good Detroit Pistons team. They have not been relevant in the playoffs since 2004 when they won the NBA championship with Ben Wallace and that team overall. And then you have this New York Knicks team that's strolling in, a team that kind of built like the Detroit Pistons back in the day in 2021 when they originally started building this team, when Leon Rose, the GM of the New York Knicks, started building this team just around grit, defensive tenacity, and just overall trying to make games, mud up games, make games just overall scrappy and just make a gritty team overall. Just make games scrappy, make games. Don't let teams win the way they want to. Just defensively, just annoy teams. That's really I don't know how else to call it. Just being feisty, being going after the ball, being out hustling teams. That's what the New York Knicks were built on, and that's what this current Detroit Pistons team is built on. With Cade Cunningham, with Jalen Duren, Asher Thompson, who's an unbelievable talent, on both sides of the ball. You still have Isaiah Stewart. You still have Malik Beasley, who's a veteran for this team, a shooting veteran for this team. You have Dennis Schroeder, who's another veteran for this team. We saw his impact in Game 2, knocking down a beyond clutch three-pointer with under 30 seconds to play in that one to break a 94-94 tied-up game. Overall, this team is it's built around, it has a bunch of seasoned veterans, it has a lot of young core group of guys, exceptionally well coached by JB Bickerstaff. You have a good mesh of older mentors with younger group of guys, younger, more energetic guys. Obviously, we know how age changes players, especially when you're young. You have more energy. But I think this game is going to be more about the New York Knicks. If the Knicks can somehow pull off this game, they need Jalen Brunson to go ballistic in this one. They need him to score. They need Jalen Brunson to score over 35 points in this one, I'd say. I think we're due for a Jalen Brunson game. He's going to need to step up to the plate to knock off this Detroit Pistons team, because they're going to come out like they got shot out of a cannon. They're going to come out like the Lakers did in Game 2. They're going to come out like the Rockets did last night. They're going to come out, feed off of the crowd's energy around them, and just try and take over this game quick, fast, and in a hurry. If the Knicks fall behind early on, I don't know if I can pick them to win. I don't know if I like their chances to win this game, because we saw them in Game 2. They could not. They tried to come back in that one. They couldn't pull it off. Overall, I just think I think it's going to be a Cade Cunningham, Jalen Brunson duel, and I'm picking the Pistons to win this game, but I think the Knicks have an opportunity here, a game that they're being ridden off in. I don't know exactly what the odds are. It's probably 115. I think it's actually 115 to 105 in terms of odds. Yeah, actually the Knicks are. Wow, the New York Knicks are favored in this one in terms of the betting odds on DraftKings. They're projected to win with a minus 115 odds, but I don't know. That actually took me off, but that took me so off guard. I was not expecting that, but yeah, I'm picking the Pistons to win this game to take a 2-1 series lead. I think the play of Cade Cunningham is going to be too much. Jalen Duren, Cade Cunningham going to continue to grow their chemistry, continue to grow as a lob threat duo. And I think it's just going to come down to the play of Jalen Brunson. If Jalen Brunson can keep this team hanging around, how is Karl Anthony Towns going to play after being called out really hearing a lot of criticism after that game 2, having zero points in the second half of game 2. Is he going to come out like Jaren Jackson Jr. did in game 2 against the Grizzlies? Is he going to come out like Jalen Green did last night against the Golden State Warriors? I don't know what's going to happen in this one, really. I really don't, because there's a lot of speculation. There's anything that can happen in this game. Game 3 in front of a hostile Detroit Pistons crowd that's really looking forward to a new Detroit Pistons team that they can root for in the playoffs. Finally seeing a good Detroit Pistons team, a team that can compete and not just get knocked out in the first round of the playoffs like those Drummond teams, like the Blake Griffin teams of the early 2010s. We just haven't seen a competitive Detroit Pistons team in the playoffs since really the 2004 team that won the championship. So it's just going to be good to see them back. It's going to be good to see them from a Detroit Pistons fan base standpoint. Another little nugget of information that's kind of funny. The Little Caesars State Arena in Detroit, the place where the Pistons play, it's been, for the last week now, it's been announced that they're not allowing any players, any fans outside of Detroit, outside of the Michigan, Ohio, Indiana area to buy tickets for this game. That means anybody from New York that wants to travel for this game is not going to be able to get into the building. I seriously think this home crowd is going to be so unbelievably loud. It's going to be one of the loudest arenas we've seen in NBA to put into perspective. Do you guys remember the Phoenix Suns arena in 2021 when Devin Booker and Chris Paul and that team was going on a run in the NBA playoffs? Do you guys remember that series against the Clippers in, I believe, Game 4? It was either Game 3 or Game 4. The Clippers were down 2-1. Kawhi had just been announced injured. It was the Paul George team, and look up a video of how loud that arena was. That is what I expect tonight to be like in Detroit. Any New York Knicks fans that are watching this stream right now, I wish you guys nothing but the best. I think Jalen Brunson is going to have a great game in this one. I think he's going to step up to the plate. We've seen Jalen Brunson step up in big moments. We've seen him show out in the playoffs for 40, 50 points. We're going to need a Jalen Brunson-esque performance like that if you guys want to have a chance to win this game. I really think it's going to come down to the play of Jalen Brunson, of Karl Anthony Towns. If Mikal Bridges can show up the way he showed up in Brooklyn, if he can show up to the value that the New York Knicks put on him with 4 first-round picks, I think the New York Knicks have a chance to win this game. I really think if they can play up to their potential, they can win this game. But it's a big if. And we've either seen Mikal Bridges struggle from shooting threes, Karl Anthony Towns being no-shows in second halves, Jalen Brunson carrying too much of the load, trying to do too much, having to do too much. And overall, if it wasn't for him in that fourth quarter in Game 2, that game would not have been close. Jalen Brunson carried that team in the fourth quarter, so that is all that needs to be said there. But if this team can show up to their standpoint, play to their potential, they have a chance. That is just the only if. That is the if. If, but when, where will Jalen Brunson show up? And that is all that needs to be said. But I'm going to take another short break. When we come back, we're going to take a look at the Cleveland Cavaliers Miami Heat series last night, recap that game, preview the Memphis Grizzlies Oklahoma City game later tonight. Pretty much we're going to mix in both 1-8 seeds in both conferences, recap, and then preview. Should be pretty fun. That'll be the next segment. Stick around the GSMC Basketball Podcast. I'll be right back for more playoff basketball.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC. to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Mehrob Fatemi. Getting right back into it here, we're going to talk a little bit about the 1-8 seed matchups here in this year's NBA playoffs. We have the Cleveland Cavaliers squaring off against the Miami Heat in the Eastern Conference, as well as the Memphis Grizzlies against the Oklahoma City Thunder. We're going to start in the East talking about Cleveland and Miami, a series that I know Anthony, I don't know if he's still in the chat box here. I want to kind of hear your opinion because I know you had some things to say about them winning both those play-in games early last week, but obviously this is a Miami Heat team that doesn't really have a lot of expectations, a team that's kind of really grown over these last few weeks, over this last month or so. But obviously squaring off against the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, the number 2 overall team in all of the NBA overall, and like with best records, second best record in the NBA in the regular season. But I won't lie. Cleveland, obviously the better team. More talent, better players overall. Top down overall, no questions asked. But I think it would be unfair if we did not mention how good Miami looked last night. Falling down 19 points in this one in the third quarter. I was personally watching the Celtics Magic game just because I am a Celtics fan. I just in full transparency, but This Cleveland Cavaliers, this series overall is one of the best series. Is one of the more competitive series. It's more competitive than the Celtics Magic, I'd say. The Miami Heat climbing back from 19 points down in classic Miami Heat fashion, as they have time and time again in the NBA playoffs. We've seen it time and time again. Cutting the lead down to 2 points at one point. Tyler Hero and Donovan Mitchell going basket for basket over the last 5 minutes. Davion Mitchell, who's really emerged over these since the play-in tournament. We saw him against the Atlanta Hawks having two crucial plays or multiple crucial plays down the stretch against the Atlanta Hawks, taking the defensive assignment on Trae Young, just overall being a fantastic player. He finished with 18 points in this one, shooting 7 of 9, 2 for 4 from 3-point range, going 7 for 7 from the field inside of the 3-point arc. Just overall, a great game from him. Especially as a role player, as a young player in Davion Mitchell, a player that we remember from the Baylor team. If you guys can think back to his college days in 2022, was it 22 or 23? I think it might have been 2023, but Davion Mitchell, one of those young guys that's really had a quiet rookie year in Sacramento, sent to Cleveland in the DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine deal, and since just really blossomed, had a slow start even here in Miami, but really emerged into his role over these playoffs. Really just play, for whatever reason, he's just really emerged and he's really blossomed into this Heat culture and playing phenomenal basketball. Him, Highsmith, a player that's really been taken out in this series is Bam Adebayo, but if you look at it on paper, you kind of expect it. Bam Adebayo having to deal with fending off Evan Mobley and Jared Allen at the same time, sometimes when they're both in the starting lineup, when they're both on the floor together. Bam Adebayo still finishing with a double-double in this one, finishing with more rebounds, not combining for more than both Mobley and Allen, but having more rebounds than both of them, finishing with 11 points, 14 rebounds, better performance from him than game one. And honestly, is there a way that Miami can make this series interesting? Game one was more of a disparity. Cleveland winning that game by 21 points. That game was a little bit closer. It was more back and forth, but Cleveland just running away with it in the fourth quarter and finishing the game with a 21-point margin of victory. This one, Cleveland winning by 9 points, 121 to 112. But overall, it was just the play of Miami just down the stretch, coming back in this game, especially in the third quarter. Cleveland having a 43-27 massive, 16-point difference in the second quarter. And then Miami climbing back to bring the lead all the way down to 2. I'm not joking. It was raining threes in the second quarter for the Cleveland Cavaliers. That is their strength, and when they can shoot like that, they can match up against anybody in the Eastern Conference, from Boston to even anybody in the West, from Boston to Oklahoma City to LA to Denver. I think they can match up with anybody in either conference, and they're rightfully one of the favorites to make it out of the Eastern Conference and win the NBA championship. So, led by Donovan Mitchell, this game was based off of overall grit from Miami, and then the playoff experience of Donovan Mitchell was just too much. I think Miami has a better chance of winning a game. It's funny because I literally had this conversation while watching the game with one of my buddies. I said Orlando has a better chance of taking a game on Boston in game 3 than Miami or Memphis, but I think Miami also might have a better chance. I think this Miami team is incredibly well coached by Eric Spoelstra. I know Anthony was talking about it, how every game that they win, if they could have just lost both play-in games, they could have just they could have gone up in the lottery picks. They could have had a better NBA lottery draft pick. And I lamented it. I said it then, same way I'm saying it now. Eric Spoelstra and Pat Riley are just built on a win at all costs, leave it all on the floor mentality. They never go out and lose games. Even in the D-Wade era, late in D-Wade's career when Miami really wasn't that good, they were still staying competitive in every game. And even without Jimmy Butler, Tyler Herro stepped up into the role of Jimmy Butler and just could play it at a very high level. There's really nothing else. There's not much else to say. Tyler Herro's just playing unbelievable basketball down the stretch here. And major props to him growing into Jimmy Butler's role as the top scoring threat for this team. I talked a lot about the Miami Heat during the segment. I do really want to talk about the Memphis Grizzlies. I might just have to cut it a little bit short. Just a quick summary. Memphis losing game 1 to the Oklahoma City Thunder by 51 points. Game 2 being a lot closer. Memphis bringing the lead down to 7 at one point. But I just think the Oklahoma City Thunder pose such a matchup threat. They match up so well. Honestly, no. They're such a matchup heavy team in Oklahoma City. I think they just don't match up well, or Memphis doesn't match up well against them. And I don't think they can keep up in either a scoring battle. I think in a shootout, I don't think Memphis can stop Oklahoma City. I think Oklahoma City can stop Memphis with the defensive play of Chet Holmgren on Jaren Jackson Jr., giving him a lot of problems in game 1. Jaren Jackson Jr. obviously having a much better game too. But still, it's going to be interesting to see how this series goes on. And I'm going to say this. I said it when talking about this series 2 days ago on Monday. How is the Taylor Jenkins firing in Memphis going to change what this team could have done in the NBA playoffs? How is the firing of Mike Malone going to affect the Denver Nuggets in the NBA playoffs? We've seen Denver kind of handle that firing a little bit better as they've gone up against the LA Clippers and played 2 unbelievable games there. But Memphis, obviously, the key concern here, the most eyeballs sitting on Memphis, because obviously falling from 2-8, losing 2 games, losing game 1 by 50 points, down 2-0 to the Oklahoma City Thunder, a team that you really didn't need to face if you continue to play at the level that you did as a 2 seed. Just overall, we know Memphis can play at a high level, and we expect them to continue to play at the high level that we know they can, the Oklahoma City Thunder to play at the high level that we know they can. And I'm projecting this series to be a clean sweep when it's all said and done, really. I think it's just going to be quick. It's going to be done quick, fast, and in a hurry. I think if there's any series to be done in a sweep, I really think it's this. I just don't think Memphis matches up with them. They haven't really shown me anything that proves that they can win a game. Maybe they will come out tonight with their backs against the wall, down 2-0, and win this game. But I could also see a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander 35-point game, Jalen Williams 25 burger, Chet Holmgren another 15 and 10 performance from him, and the Oklahoma City Thunder winning this one by about 20 plus points. I expect the Thunder to win this game by 15 plus points. I really think that's the disparity. That's the game that we're going to see. And we'll see how it ends up shaking out down the stretch here. But I'm going to take one last short break. When we come back, we're actually going to talk about a topic that was on earlier in the news over the weekend that we didn't really get to talk about over these last few days, just because there's been so much to talk about in the NBA world, both recapping, previewing games, and that's DeMar DeRozan. We're going to talk about his altercation with a fan. I don't know if you saw the video. We'll talk about that video, exactly what transpired there, and we're also going to talk a little bit about what's next for this. We're going to talk about what's next for DeMar DeRozan, what's next for this Sacramento team. We talked a little bit about this last week, but we're going to talk specifically about DeMar DeRozan on some news that's come out about him and what's next, and talk a little bit about his future with Sacramento and what's next for him. I'm going to take a short break, and we're going to talk a little bit about DeMar DeRozan when we come back. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Mehrob Fatemi. Getting into our last segment here, we're going to talk a little bit about DeMar DeRozan. He had a little bit of an altercation with a fan in a restaurant. We're going to talk a little bit of what happened there, as well as some news that came out about him over the weekend about his future in Sacramento and what he decides to do as we move forward with this as we move forward into the off season here. I'm trying to quote him on something, but I don't think I'm going to be able to find that quote. Overall, regardless, we're going to talk DeMar DeRozan getting into an altercation with a fan over the weekend. Basically, a fan putting up a flashlight in his face while he was at a restaurant. There is a clip floating around online of this. There's actually 2 clips. I think there's one from an aftermath of the fight, or after the fight started, and also a clip of before the fight happened and what actually transpired to start that fight. It was at a sushi restaurant. Basically, somebody put a camera or a flashlight in his face while he was sitting down at a table, just pretty much screaming, barking at him, just overall just saying a bunch of nonsense. There's a lot of stuff that I can't fully speak on and quote what actually was said just because of profanity and whatnot. But overall, DeMar DeRozan, just hearing it from fans, we saw it, just whether that's because of his performance with the Sacramento Kings since the trade from the Chicago Bulls or whatnot, missing the playoffs, losing in the play-in tournament to the Dallas Mavericks, regardless of what it may be. You can't go up to a DeMar DeRozan like that as a fan or as a player, regardless, and show up in his face and do something like that. It's just not right overall. And DeMar DeRozan, obviously, very rightfully, or not very rightfully, but ended up fighting him, swinging hands, throwing punches back and forth with the guy, and the two needed to be separated when it was all said and done. There was one last quote that I'm going to say right after it was said and done. After the altercation, the fan said, "Don't meet your heroes' kids." That's obviously when you say something like that, that was the aftermath. That was what he said after the altercation, as he was walking away. If that's what he's saying after the fact, that puts into perspective what he said to DeMar DeRozan. He was speaking on his family, and any father that's in here, that I'm nowhere near that, so I don't understand that standpoint. But you hear it time and time again that you can't speak on a person's kids, and you can't speak on a person's family, speak badly about a person's family without that person getting incredibly upset. So I think that's what happened with DeMar DeRozan here, and he just got he got emotional, and that's it. It is what it is. It's not a bad thing. It doesn't give DeMar DeRozan a bad look by any means, I don't think, but it still deserves to be talked about and whatnot. Especially, I wouldn't be talking about it if there wasn't a little bit of news that came out about the Sacramento Kings. We'll stay with DeMar DeRozan here. He's vocalized that he does not know what his future entails, whether he stays with the Sacramento Kings, whether he moves on. I personally think it wouldn't be a bad idea if he moved on. There are a lot of teams out here that are looking for veteran talents, whether that be the Orlando Magic, whether that be, say, the Detroit Pistons, the New York Knicks, the Minnesota Timberwolves, just a team that needs another role player. I think DeMar DeRozan is still a great scorer, or maybe not great, but he's still a good scorer. He can still average about 15, maybe not 15 is a bad number, 18 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists a game. His assist numbers are kind of low just because he's more of a shooting guard kind of player, more of a pick and pop kind of guy. But yeah, DeMar DeRozan is still a great player. So we'll see how that ends up transpiring, how that ends up. I just gave out a list of teams that I think he would do better I think would be better for him in his career if he started ring chasing a little bit, started being more of an asset for a team like the Minnesota Timberwolves, like the New York Knicks. I think, honestly, since saying it, I think the Timberwolves are a great fit for him, just to pair up with Anthony Edwards, give him a little bit of a shooter to shoot, to give him a guy that he can kick out to, a reliable shooter that he can rely on to shoot the basketball. That's really what you need to relax some of the pressure on Anthony Edwards. But that's one side of the equation. That's one piece of news that came out. Another piece of news, Domantas Sabonis. We've heard rumblings about it all season long. It really looks like he's not going to be in Sacramento next season. There are some rumors that he might return to Indiana to have a reunion there. That's the favorites right now in terms of his landing spot. But I do think there's also another plethora of teams that could take him. I think whether you could possibly, I think he might be a free agent this season. I don't know 100% on that one. if he's under contract and he's going to request a trade out, I think the New York Knicks should be all over this. If I'm the New York Knicks and Domantas Sabonis is available, I would not hesitate to send them an offer with Karl-Anthony Towns involved for Domantas Sabonis. I don't know if they would do it straight up like that. Maybe do a Karl-Anthony Towns and just throw in a role player. Throw in a Landry Shamet and maybe like a second-round pick. Do something. Because I think Sabonis would fit this team so well from a rebounding standpoint, from a grit standpoint, would pair up, would bring back that grit that Julius Randle brought to the team. He's a younger version of Julius Randle. He's taller. He's a better shooter. He's a better defender. I think Domantas Sabonis would be a great fit on the New York Knicks. Paired up with Mitchell Robinson in the post, I think he would be great. He would be a great fit on the New York Knicks. So that's my number one place. If I'm Domantas Sabonis, that's where I ask to be traded. And if I'm the New York Knicks, that's a player that I look at and say, maybe that could be a great option for me to possibly trade for him. But that's neither here nor there. Overall, it looks like since De'Aaron Fox has been traded to the San Antonio Spurs, where he is now, since it looks like all the wheels are falling off the ship here. That's the best way to say it. Like, De'Aaron Fox now gone. Zach LaVine is sitting there by himself. I don't think he's just a guy looking to play, looking to play for a championship. So he's probably going to be the next out the door. We haven't heard any news from him. But Domantas Sabonis, obviously a player in 2023 that played for that Kings team that ultimately went down to Game 7 against the Golden State Warriors. We saw that transpire with that Sacramento Kings team. That was a great that was one of my that's one of my fondest memories of a Sacramento Kings team, because I really liked that Sacramento Kings team. It was a great team overall to watch. It was an entertaining team. But yeah, overall, I just think Sabonis definitely wants out. He's been there for too long. He doesn't want to be part of the new rebuild. And he's in the thick of his prime right now. So he's going to request out. DeMar DeRozan, I don't know exactly if he's going to stay for the money or if he's going to leave. I could see either. There's arguments for either standpoint here. I think he's probably going to leave. He's going to request a trade out. But obviously I'm not him. He stayed in Chicago for a few years. He stayed in Toronto for an extra couple of years. We'll see what he ends up doing. But yeah, overall, that's the state of the Sacramento Kings. The Sacramento Kings really falling here, not looking like a playoff contender over these next few years. It'll be interesting to see what they end up doing with a new GM and standpoint, with a new GM there after firing I talked about it last week, firing their GM, and we'll move from there. What's next for this Kings team? But yeah, that'll just about do it for me here. Another unbelievable show. I know at the tail end here we kind of got into some topics that are a little bit drier, a little bit less entertaining, not as much to talk about, more of a number standpoint, more of a guessing if that, blah, blah, blah. Had to go into the archives to talk about the DeMar DeRozan altercation for the final segment, just because there isn't a whole lot to talk about right now in the NBA. There isn't a lot to talk about, but at the same time, there is a whole lot to talk about with how entertaining these NBA playoffs have been so far. We got 2 more games tonight. We got Knicks Pistons in what is a massive Game 3. And then we got Grizzlies and Thunder late at night to finish off the night. Overall, it should be a great slate of games. But that'll do it for me for the show. Thank you guys for tuning into the GSMC Basketball Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us, so please remember to subscribe to the show and leave a review. Whether positive or negative, we completely appreciate it. You guys are a big part of what we do here at the GSMC Sports Network. Whether positive, let us know what we're doing well. Let us know what we can improve on. Overall, just let us know what we can do better. And that review really makes a difference so we can continue to improve and give you guys a better product on these daily shows. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. Thank you once again for another unbelievable show. 3 games finishing up last night, 2 more games tonight. We'll recap those in tomorrow's show. This is Mehrob Fatemi, the host of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, signing off. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your days. Thank you so much, and bye-bye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.